Team Fortress 2 has a bot problem.
Oh crap!
Now, what do I mean by this? You're probably wondering to yourself, what is Team Fortress 2? What do you mean by bots? And how do you have my IP address? All of these are good questions, and I'll be answering them in this video, minus the IP one because you don't need to know my methods. Team Fortress 2, often shortened to TF2, is an online multiplayer first-person shooter. TF2 has 9 distinct classes, each with their own role in the team. One class can go invisible and kill anybody in one hit, and another can heal people from short or long range, and one class can even just freaking blow themselves up to move them faster to an objective. TF2 basically invented the class-based shooter genre. So how did TF2 get to where it is today? Where did it come from? How did it start? This whole story started back in 1993 when id Software released the hit game Doom. Doom was an immense hit, and id released the sequel 1 year later in 1994. Doom 2 was an even bigger hit than the first game, and it gave us the most infamous gun in all of video game history, the Super Shotgun. 2 years later, after the success of Doom and Doom 2, id released Quake, a revolutionary 3D shooter compared to Doom and Doom 2's 2.5D, with more mobility, guns, action, and edginess than its predecessor. Quake was popular for the same reasons Doom was. It was fast, it was gory, and it was fun. This is where our story begins. In Washington State, a small group of people, now known as Valve Software, made the game Half-Life. Half-Life was based on a heavily modified Quake engine called Gold SRC, or Gold Source. Now, a game engine is how a game runs. It's kind of like a computer operating system, but for games. Half-Life was an even bigger hit than Quake, with its intriguing story, sci-fi atmosphere, and ambiguous ending. The success of Half-Life caused a number of spin-offs to be made, including Half-Life Blue Shift and Half-Life Opposing Force. Half-Life also came with a multiplayer feature so that you could challenge your friends to see who was better at Half-Life. This small group, now known as Valve Software Corporation, made Half-Life into its own standalone game. After the publishing of the mod Half-Life as its own standalone game, another small group of people modified this game to create Team Fortress, now known as Team Fortress Classic. TFC was a hit. It was fun and had separate classes to play as. It offered an alternative to a Half-Life experience while keeping it similar and grounded. It was so popular that the people who made Half-Life, now called Valve Software, noticed it and hired the modders as developers and bought the game. They started to work on a sequel, and at E3 in 2003, we got this, Team Fortress 2 Brotherhood of Arms. I'll be the first to tell you that Team Fortress 2 Brotherhood of Arms would not have lasted as long as Team Fortress 2 has in its current iteration. Later in 2006, we got a proper release trailer for Team Fortress 2, now on the famous Source engine. This Team Fortress 2 looks much more like the TF2 we have nowadays, but there are still some differences. But it was still mostly what we got. One difference is that in the trailer, Scout has a nail gun, but on release, this was changed to the now famous scattergun. This was a very intentional change, and the devs made clear work of this in their developer commentary. Now, TF2 is a game that rewards accuracy. Every class has the ability to kill in 2 hits or less, depending on the class that they're fighting. TF2 came out in 2007 and received critical acclaim by critics and fans alike. It was sold as part of the infamous Orange Box bundle, which also included Half-Life 2 Episodes 1 and 2, as well as the new Portal. We'll talk about that at a later date. Now, this leads to our second question, the bots. A bot account is an account that has no human player behind the screen controlling the in-game character. This is different to just your plain old cheater who, instead of doing that, they just download software and run it while they're running their game, so they can still play the game while also having it be much easier for them. Now, there is a class in the game called the Sniper class. This was just kind of a necessity, and people have been complaining about the Sniper class's balance for a couple of years now, mainly because of the bot invasion. Now, what happens is a bot account will join a game, choose the Sniper class, and then they will just kill everybody who gets into their line of sight. This causes a server to get abandoned because one team just kind of ceases to exist, and the other team doesn't have fun because there's no one to, go shoot bang to. Now, some types of bots, actually most types of bots, can be run on very few computer resources. One bot user and distributor was asked by a bigger YouTuber, much bigger than I am, named TF2, about how exactly did the bots work, how much resources they cost, things like that. He said that the bots can run on as little as 700 megabytes of RAM. That is less than 1 gigabyte, and considering that most computers come with 8 to 16 gigabytes of RAM, one computer can easily run 10 to 15 bot accounts. Easily. This can shut down dozens of servers at a single time and can cause people to quit the game. Now, this bot problem can cause people to lose interest in the game, and if they lose interest in the game, they stop playing. Now, when they stop playing, then the game just kind of dies, fades out of it into obscurity, and with no new people joining, it just slowly loses its player base until there's no one left, which is a sad thing. Now, you might be wondering, what does the publishers, Valve, are doing about it? They're doing nothing. Absolutely nothing. They don't care about the game one bit. Now, what used to happen in the glory days of Team Fortress 2 is we would get a summer rebalance, a Halloween or summer update, Halloween event that was very fun, and a winter rebalancing. Now, this happened so much that it was kind of just expected for most years. Everything's. So, now, this has been slowing down, and by slowing down, I mean we haven't done any major content update in the past 5 years. That is about 1/3 of Team Fortress 2's existence. Now, the TF2 has basically accepted this fact. What will happen if you do join a populated official Valve matchmaking server is and a bot joins, is they will usually try and kick the bot before it causes too much havoc. Now, some people don't do this, but most people do. Now, cheating has always been a problem in video games, but a combination of no updates, a free-to-play game, an exploitable engine, and a faulty anti-cheat caused TF2 to be one of the biggest victims of cheating. Most of the time, the TF2 community has just accepted this, and they've taken refuge in community-made servers, which bot accounts cannot join because they're not in the matchmaking section of Team Fortress 2, as you can see on your screen right now. So, the combination of no updates, a free-to-play game, an exploitable engine, and a faulty anti-cheat causes TF2 to be one of the biggest victims of cheating. Now, These community servers that I just mentioned are run by, you guessed it, the community. Now, once this community stops being profitable for big YouTubers like a man named Uncle Dane, who runs some of the biggest community servers in Team Fortress 2, once they lose interest, then thousands of people lose interest with them because they're their main source of content. So this is obviously a problem. And this lack of updates is really hurting the game. Now, don't get me wrong, TF2 is still very fun. I encourage you to check it out. And if you do want to, you should go to the community tab section and search up a server called Uncletopia. But that doesn't stop the fact that Valve is just stopped caring about the game. Now, I've made some good friends in TF2 servers on like 1 a.m., but it's a lost cause at this point. Now, you may be wondering, what about the anti-cheat? That has to do something. Now, the Valve anti-cheat is basically one of those "Are you 18 or older?" signs on an adult website. VAC works by tagging suspicious activity and looking at it over a few days. And then, if they think the account is cheating, they'll ban it. Pretty simple. Now, this normally works against single players who aren't in an organized group. But if there are dozens of new accounts being created every second, then VAC can't really keep up, as it takes 2 to 3 days to ban a hacking account. So the main problem with this botting crisis, besides just the bots themselves, is Valve doesn't care anymore. And you think they would, because their other big game, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, is one of the most played games in the world. It constantly ranks within the top 5 on most played per day on Steam charts, and is generally very popular and is updated by Valve. You think they do this to Counter-Strike's goofier brother, but they just don't care about Team Fortress 2 anymore, and that's the biggest problem. They don't care. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.